Hello and welcome to episode 196 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Weekly Off-Topic Podcast. I'm Mike Sollosi, and today I'm here to, find some mana spirits, engage in some trials, not trails, trials, with three other podcasters, starting with Zach Wilkerson.
Hey there.
Also, Greg Delmage.
Hi there.
And thirdly, Alana Hagues.
Hey!
Now, Alana and Zach, we were in the same room together in Los Angeles watching the Nintendo E3 Direct
Yes, we were.
on a Tuesday morning when
Wild.
when they beyond all reason, beyond my expectation, they announced an official localization of the collection of mana for Switch. And within the collection of mana for Switch is Seiken Densetsu 3, which was rebranded Trials of Mana. Now, Seiken Densetsu 3 is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. I've been playing it off and on for between 15 and 20 years, since the early 2000s when I got a little deep into Super Famicom emulation. And I played SD3 many, many times over those intervening years. But now I have to stop calling it SD3 because now it's Trials of Mana on the collection of mana, and I'm presuming that's how all four of us played it this time?
Yes.
Correct.
Sure is.
Alright, cool. So, yeah, we're on that Switch, playing that collection of mana. Alana, you reviewed the collection of mana for the website, and that review went up last week, I think, right?
I did, yeah, so you can go ahead and read that. There's not a lot of a focus on Trials of Mana in particular because we're covering all three games and covering it as a package, but it's great. Like, it's a little bit expensive, but if you want three really excellent games, pick it up, and I really hope we're gonna wax lyrical about this game, because I am.
Yeah. I think you mentioned in the review, or maybe you told me separately, that it was your first time playing Final Fantasy Adventure and Trials of Mana, but you already knew of Secret of Mana pretty well.
Yeah, exactly that, I think, yeah.
All right. Now, Zach, how many of the mana games have you played, and is this your first time playing Trials?
It is my first time playing Trials. I got into the emulation scene in the early 2000s too, but like sort of the action-based combat with a keyboard didn't really work for me. So I didn't play it that way, but I played Secret of Mana probably.
Oh, I got real weird on keyboard. Sure. I've beaten SNK Neo Geo fighting games on a keyboard, which is
impressive.
It's stressful, is what it is.
But yeah, I played Secret of Mana many times previously. I played Final Fantasy Adventure, I think one time when I was very young. I barely remember it. And I dabbled in some of the later Mana games too. But Seiken Densetsu 3 has been a game that I have wanted to play for about 20 years, and I couldn't have been more excited to play it.
Right on. And Greg, I know you're a big Mana fan. Is this your first time playing Trials of Mana, or did you dabble in emulation like I did 15 years ago?
I definitely did back in the day, and it's been a very long time, as I can't remember, as we were chatting a bit. I'm a bit hazy on some of the details as to who and what and where I got to in the game. I don't know if I ever beat the final boss, but I do remember fighting some stuff, and I remember playing as Hawkeye, and that's about it.
Well, all right. And as I mentioned before, I'm a longtime Mana fan. We even did an Encounter of Mana episode on this podcast 2 years ago, and I dive really deep into SD3 when I started emulating stuff in the early 2000s. Really, the two games that I really got the most out of from emulation were Seiken Densetsu 3 and Tales of Fantasia. And that's a lie. Also, Dragon Quest V. Those are really the three Super Famicom only games that I
really good ones
that I got real deep into. Yeah, Seiken Densetsu 3, Trials of Mana. I'm going to be getting names wrong the entire episode because this is an all-new translation that fits a little bit more into the Secret of Mana localization, but also isn't limited by 6 characters per name. So I think a lot of the names, the spell names and character names, are probably more sensible in the Trials of Mana version, with one exception that I take great umbrage to that we'll talk about soon. But yeah, the basic framework of Trials of Mana is that there are 6 main characters and sort of 3 main conflicts, and each one of the main characters is involved in one of the 3 conflicts. So you have you have the Ice Kingdom invading Forsena, you have the Beast Kingdom invading Holy City Wendell, and you have the the Desert Kingdom Navarre invading the Amazon cat kingdom, whose name escapes me. Sorry, but
Lawrence.
Laurent.
yeah, Laurent. It was Rolento or Rolente in the
Yeah.
in the old one, and now it's Laurent. Yeah, so Navarre invading Laurent. So each of the six main characters are involved in those conflicts, and you pick three characters at the beginning, one a first, second, and third, and the character you pick first shapes the resolution of those big conflicts and affects the end game of the story. So this is a little stressful if you go in sort of knowing that that the choice matters. But that choice you make at the beginning of the game with no information and no input really from the game other than some character images shapes the whole rest of the game. So that's the first question I have for you. Who you got? What was your team for this run? Starting with you, Greg.
I have gone with Reese, and then we picked up Charlotte, and then finally found Duran.
You went with Charlotte second and not third?
It was just because I started playing with Gwen. She's playing as player 2, so her choice of character was to go with Charlotte, and then we both decided on Duran as our third.
Okay.
So we just winged it based on the whims of my then 8, now 9-year-old.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't have known this, of course, but if you pick Charlotte third, she joins you early, and you can get three characters for the first boss instead of 2.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so whenever I use Charlotte, I always pick her third. But
that's a neat hot tip for future playthroughs.
Yeah, I know.
I'm looking forward to that.
I bugged all three of you at various degrees about what to do in this game because I'm obnoxious like that. But maybe I didn't bug you quite enough this time, Greg.
No.
Zach, what was your party for this run?
I was pretty similar to Greg's, actually. So my main was Reese, and then my second was Kevin, and then based on your advice, I made Charlotte my third.
That's a strong team.
Yeah, it is.
Go and beat some people up.
Alana, what was your party?
Well, I've done 2 runs because I played it through for the review, and then I'm doing a second run for the podcast. So I will talk less about my first run because I also picked Reese as my main character. And then I picked Hawkeye and Kevin. Kevin first and then Hawkeye, which proved to be ridiculously good. For this second run, I am doing an all-girls run. So I picked Charlotte as my main character. And then I picked Reese. So I had some offense for the first boss and then Angela.
Shockingly, I think I've done all of those parties before. Because I've beaten this game, I'm not exactly sure, probably between 7 and 9 times over the years. And and even more, I've started playthroughs and then abandoned them. Because, again, there's 3 endgame scenarios depending on the character you pick first. And each character does class changes, once at level 18 and then a second time at level 38. And you guys all know this, but this is partially for the listener benefit. So because the classes are sort of branching, each character has 4 final classes. And they're usually called... identified by light or dark side. So whether you do your first class change light or dark, and then your second class change light or dark. So, Kevin going light is a divine fist, but Kevin going light dark is a warrior monk. Every character has 4 final states like that. So because I wanted to explore as many of those as I could, I've done several runs of this game, and mercifully the game is not that long. I think. My run this time was about 15 hours, but if it's your first time playing, it's probably going to be a little longer than that, because I've played this a lot. But for this run, I went with Angela first, and then Kevin second, and then Reese third. So, from this playthrough, or just from your general experience, do any of us have a favorite character so far?
Kevin. The guy just destroys everything. Everything in his path. I mean, he's unbelievable from a damage output perspective.
Kevin is literally broken. He is broken as hell.
He is by far the strongest character in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I really have not had any real trouble, especially because I just, spam heals with Charlotte and then just let Kevin destroy things and kind of manage things with Reese. And I haven't had any real difficulties at this point in the game.
All right.
Yeah, he does break things pretty good.
Alana, do you have a favorite character from your 1.5 playthroughs?
Yeah, Reese. She was my MVP for the first run through. I didn't have a very good healer until Well, yeah, until the second class change for my first playthrough, because Kevin's light classes learn healing spells, but only single target, and it is only one of them that learns. I did not have a single multi-target healing spell for my entire first run through. I sacrificed it for strength, but I did go for Reese's multi-target buffs, and oh my god, does
Yeah,
it make a huge difference?
yeah. Reese's Starlancer class is one of the best characters in the game. Full stop. It's really powerful. And talking about Kevin going for healing versus offense, that's a lot of the time that's the choice that you make with each class change. It's like, all right, this class has better skills and better support, and this class has more damage.
Yeah.
It's not always that black and white, but often you're choosing more offense versus more magic,
Yeah.
going class to class. And for Kevin, his dark classes will only learn maybe one spell the whole game, and usually the spell kind of sucks. His special attacks will be better, and he'll deal, I don't know, maybe 10% more damage than his light classes, which do learn a quick attack boost and a healing spell.
But Charlotte is also extremely good with her group healing. But Angela as well is really good. Like all of the characters I've tried so far have been really good in different ways, and I'm sure we'll touch on that as we go along.
Oh yeah. I think maybe the easiest way to play the game is to have Kevin and then two good supporting characters. But I mean, any party is good. You can, and if you end up making a final party that has no healing or no boosting or any of that, you can buy healing and boosting items and just stockpile those and make through the game just fine. But but building team synergy and team combinations is something that I minorly obsessed over in the 2000s.
I understand now. I'm
Right?
doing
Oh,
it as
super
well.
fun with this game, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Greg, in the early goings in your run, have you or Gwen found a favorite character?
Well, Gwen was definitely drawn towards Charlotte, which is why she picked her, and I think a lot of it has to do with just cuteness factor. And Gwen also just likes playing a support healer, so she's been basically taking to that and sticking to the backs to keep healing us and such. Way back when I first got into this game in emulating, I was always drawn to Reese, but I did dabble through the origin stories, I think, of every character, and they all are pretty strong. And Kevin's got like a pretty deep story and all that good stuff. And I've enjoyed playing as Kevin, but I think Reese still sticks for me, which is why I came back to her for this one. Even though I played with Hawkeye through the most of the game, I've always wanted to go back and do a playthrough as Reese, and I'm really digging her character so far.
I think Reese and Hawkeye are maybe the two most versatile characters in the game because both of them learn support spells and have good offense and can just fit into basically any team. But Kevin will always be smashing things. Duran will always have sort of limited offense until the end of the game and some saber spells. Angela will always be a offensive spellcaster, and Carly will always be a support spellcaster. But you can just throw Hawkeye and Reese anywhere, and they'll just be really good.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what makes them so great. Is they're just like really well rounded.
Yeah,
They're good middle of the road balance for the team.
and they're just good attackers and good supporting spellcasters.
Yeah.
They're just good. The only character who I think is really limiting at the beginning is Duran because his attacks are so slow, and to get the most out of him, you have to like multi-hit enemies often, and the spells that he learns are good, but also his spirit is always low, so it takes him forever just to cast, I don't know, Flame Saber. But later in the game, when he learns powerful full screen specials and good saber skills, he's like Duran's a really good second or third character in like later in the game. But I think he's hard to use for a beginner. He's probably my least favorite character to use, but he has a good story. Every character here. The character you pick first, you play through their sort of first chapter in their hometown, and you sort of see their motivation for continuing the story. And your first character, especially, will definitely affect not decision making, but will affect the dialogue and some of the events of the story as you go through. Like, I'm playing with Angela as my main character now, but she has mostly the same story path as Duran. But if you go through the story as Duran, you'll have more scenes with the king of uh, with the king, your king of what is it? It was used to be Forsena.
Falsena.
Okay,
Balsena.
now it's Falsena. Okay,
Yeah.
you'll have more scenes with the king of Falsena and the Darkshine Knight, but with Angela, you'll have different scenes with Corin the Crimson Wizard and the Queen of Altina. So like. I'm not saying you need to spend 20 hours on a playthrough just to see the differences in dialogue between Angela and Duran, but those differences do exist and they're cool. So, do we want to run through everyone's chapter 1 just briefly, or yeah, let's do that. I kind of want to. Angela is the only person in the Kingdom of Magic who can't cast spells, and her mom is annoyed by that. So she says, "Angela, for the good of the kingdom, we're going to sacrifice you." And she does not like that one bit. So she gets the hell out of there and decides to go to the holy city of Wendell to find out what's wrong with her mom. Duran is a guardsman in Falsena, and and the entire castle guard gets their ass kicked by a mage named the Crimson Wizard, who's one of Angela's compatriots in Altina. And so Duran survives and the king survives, but he's very concerned about an invasion from Falsena, but he hears a rumor about something called class changing that'll make him stronger. So he decides to go to the holy city and learn about class changing. Now you have Kevin. Kevin is a carefree half-beast man living in the Beast Kingdom, and he has a best friend, Carl, a little wolf puppy. But unexpectedly, an evil jester named Gourmand. Gourmand places a curse on Carl that makes him attack Kevin, and Kevin awakens to his beast instincts and kills Carl. Which
is the most tragic.
Which sends him into a spiral, and he decides to run away from home and find a way to revive Carl at the Holy City. You might be noticing a pattern here. Charlotte is a resident of the Holy City. Her grandfather is the head priest there, and she's close friends with a very talented young priest named Heath. And Heath is going around just being a nice priest dude, but he also meets that evil jester named Gourmand. And Gourmand spirits away Heath and kidnaps him, and Charlotte wants to find a way to rescue him. So she runs out of the Holy City looking for Heath. And I'm sorry to be monologuing so hard, but this is legit a cool part of the game, so I want to go over each of them. Now you have Reese. She's the princess of Laurent, and she's the leader of an army of Amazons there, which is awesome. And she also has a little brother named Elliot.
Yeah.
And Elliot gets kidnapped by Isabel / Belladonna after he inadvertently turns off the wind defense protecting Laurent, which allows the kingdom of Navarre to invade.
Navarre, yeah.
Navarre, yeah.
Oh, it's just like the character from Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, Navarre. It was Navarre in the old translation, and then they changed it to Nabarl. Huh, interesting. All right. Hawkeye is a thief of Navarre. That kingdom has thieves and ninjas in their employ, and Isabel goes there as well. She bewitches the Sultan of Navarre, Flame Khan, which is a great title, and the Flame Khan, under Isabel's influence, decides to invade Laurent, and Hawkeye just has some questions about this, but before he can sort of challenge what's going on, Isabel places a death curse on Hawkeye's girlfriend, Jessica, and kills Hawkeye's best friend, which is Jessica's brother, Eagle, and blames Hawkeye for his death. So basically, Hawkeye leaves Navarre on the run to try to find a way to break the curse on Jessica, which will kill her if he tells her the truth about Eagle. So yeah, that's how it goes. Whichever character you choose for your first, we'll on the way to Wendell, you go you'll stop by a small town called Jad, and then another small town called Astoria, and off the coast of the lake near Jad and Astoria, you'll meet a fairy, and the fairy comes from the mana tree. She warns you that mana is dying, and the fairy attaches herself to you to try and go on a quest to save mana. Okay, that was way too much monologuing on my part. What were your reactions to each of your characters' chapter 1s?
Well, first of all, way to go, Elliot.
Yeah.
It was again funny playing it with Gwen because she was just like, I would never fall for that, and it was rather strange that you have this entire kingdom whose defense mechanism is based on the wind and these whole, keeping these sleep spores or whatever, I guess, at bay. You would think they would have immunized themselves to the sleep spores in the surrounding areas in case such an event could happen.
They can. It only works once on them.
Yes.
Well, exactly. You think they would have already immunized the entire city guard to it before
I think it's just defending them from invaders.
It's not defending them from the sleep spores. It's defending them from invaders and making it hard to travel up the mountain to the to the kingdom. The sleep spores thing is a plot point later on.
But anyhow, it's just really tragic. A lot of them, I think, are very tragic stories to start off the game with, and especially with Reese as well. With like, oh, your dad's dead, your brother's gone. Get out there and find them, and then you have this fairy that invades your head and is like, I know you've got family priorities and all, but we got to save the world.
Yeah, I mean, I like the sort of simplicity of Reese's story. It's very SNES era, I mean, like this idea, like, oh, your brother's kidnapped, so you must go after him. And I think I like I sort of miss the simplicity of some of the motivations sometimes in Super Nintendo era games, and I thought they really hit all of them really well here.
Yeah, there's a definite on-the-nose arc for all that sort of stuff. I mean, Duran's especially is like tutorial mode with, let's go learn about class changing. Mm-hmm. But Reese also isn't like made a girly girl either, which I liked. Like she's just treated as like the kingdom's hero and just go out and do your thing and save your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reese's tone is just very polite. And she's sort of take charge, get stuff done kind of girl. And but she very politely bows to everyone, which I think Hawkeye makes fun of her for, because Hawkeye's speech is very informal. Yeah. And really, I think each character has a distinct speech pattern. Duran is sort of rough around the edges. Angela is very bratty, very sort of rude girl. Kevin is slightly. I mean, we were saying he has a bit of caveman speech going on. He's not maybe he's not maybe quite as brusque as, say, Isla from Chrono Trigger, but he is, a very sort of grunting kind of way of talk. And then there's Charlotte.
Ugh.
Ugh. Yeah, they really. She has evidently a very cute, exaggerated way of talking, but it makes her say things like "sawi," and I think even call herself "shawit" sometimes.
Yeah, every R and every L is a W, without exception.
Yeah.
Except with whatever you named her, because reasons they can't translate that, I guess. But otherwise,
that's true.
Unless you wanted to specifically name her Shawit. And then everybody would call her Charlotte.
I think I know what I'm going to call her on my next run of this game.
Exactly.
But yeah, each one character has a distinctive speech pattern. I think it's pretty distinctive and entertaining for maybe everyone besides Charlotte.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Although Gwen is very entertained by Charlotte's speech pattern every time she reads it.
That's good. Glad somebody likes it.
The target audience.
Yeah, I guess so. I am more than 20 years older than Gwen. I guess that's probably why I'm not attaching to it. But
yeah.
But regardless of who you pick in any order, you do the order of events in the game basically the same until a certain point. And you have about maybe 4 levels with one character before you get your party of 3, and
it's probably worth saying, actually, if you pick Charlotte as your first character, she has a slightly different beginning, because the other 5 characters have to go to the little town south of Jad.
Jad and
everybody else, everybody else starts in Jad or goes to Jad after their first bit of their like, oh no, my sister's been kidnapped or whatever, or I've run away from home. Charlotte goes straight to that small town below Jad. And the fairy light happens straight after you find Heath and he gets kidnapped. So, like, her order of events is slightly different. And
it's been a long time.
She doesn't have a lot of fighting either, I don't think.
She doesn't. No, she has no fighting in her initial chapter, and the only time you have to fight anything is when you're going up to find Heath. But it's only rabbits. It's not like Reese's prickle bird. I can't remember what they're called now.
Pricklebeak. Yeah.
And let's see. Duran has to fight at night. Angela has to go through the snowfields a little bit and maybe fight a couple Sahagins. Every character has a little bit of fighting in their first chapter, other than Charlotte, I guess. But
yeah, she just has to meander through the Rabite Forest, I guess, and that's about it.
And I remember this is not for story reasons, but Charlotte and Angela are my least favorite characters to start with the game with because they have no offense at all before they learn spells. So so there's a lot of whacking enemies with a staff and dealing less than half of what a Duran strike will deal. So yeah, not great the first couple levels with Angela.
Yeah, they're a little weak, I'm sure.
And
I didn't
Angela,
mind it. You just shove points in strength for a little bit, and then once you get the second character, if you didn't put it as Angela, then it's fine. But
and also,
yeah.
amusingly, Angela is the only person in her whole kingdom that can't use magic. But that's because for some reason, her body is rejecting absorbing the power of the mana crystal that her kingdom is exploiting. And she learns magic the way you're supposed to from the spirits. So once you start meeting elemental spirits, Angela starts learning spells. And it turns out she's quite a talented mage.
Mm-hmm.
The old-fashioned way.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of the game, her mom's proud of her and everything's very sweet. But anyway, early on, you do visit the city of Wendell. The very wise grandpa that is in charge there sort of gently tells you what you need to do or what is or isn't possible for each character. And then Wendell gets attacked by beastmen, and eventually the priest seals off the town. But
there was also a minor, I think, localization error in that moment, too. When you were talking with them, there's a moment where I think the fairy's talking to you, but it says priest.
Oh, possibly.
But it was like, so it's contextually like, I'm pretty sure it's the fairy. Anyways, random small minor note. There's not very many of them, thankfully, in the game.
Yeah, after Wendell gets invaded and they put up a barrier, but you and you get thrown in jail. But then you sneak out of jail and escape Jad over to another continent where you start where you go towards Falsenna, where Duran's from. And simplifying things a little bit, you fight some people from Altena there. You meet the dwarf village and the Falsenna kingdom, and you meet Gnome. So after you meet the Spirit of Light, Lumina in outside of Wendell, and Gnome outside of Falsenna, those are your first two spirits that you meet at the game. And the 8 mana spirits are sort of a I don't know, you want to call them a highlight or a mainstays of the Mana series, but they look really cute in this game. I like the Mana spirits.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
They definitely got a nice overhaul for sure.
Yeah, they have a lot of frames of animation. They bob up and down, and they look really good. I just really like the character animations in this game in general. There's a lot of expressiveness. Everyone has a laughing animation, a sleeping animation, a different chest opening animation. They do a really, really good job with these 1995 SNES sprites.
Yeah, later Square sprites are amazing. I mean, this Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, they all look great.
My favorite though is when you take cannon travel, which every character normally just lands and crash lands and bounces a couple times, except for Kevin, who just lands on his feet and his feet shake a little bit.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's pretty great. I love the animations and small details like that in this game. The way that the game plays is a lot different from Secret of Mana as well. There's no bar charging actions. You don't have to hold down your buttons for several seconds to do your strongest attacks, and you don't learn spells by using spells. So there's less grinding in Trials of Mana than Secret of Mana for the powerful stuff, but there is pauses to the action. You have to time things well. You have to watch a meter for your special attacks and manage spell cast times.
They definitely streamlined things really nicely. Some nice quality of life improvements for sure in this game over the last.
Yeah, the action is way more streamlined over Secret of Mana, but every time you gain a level, you do get to choose where your next stat point goes into, which is a little bit of customization that's welcome, I think.
Mm-hmm. And it comes with certain limits too, because you can't just dump all into whatever the one main stat is. Like you have to raise certain other stats before you can get more points to go into something else.
I don't know exactly the formula for it, but I think you can't. Yeah. You can't have stats above a certain level.
At first I thought it was like a D&D sort of thing where like with your skills in 3.5 and 3.0 you can it's your level plus 5 kind of thing or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head now, it's been a while. And so I thought it was something like that because it seemed to correlate that our strength maxed out at 10 and we're at 10 and we're at level 7, so we can't, but we're not allowed going higher than that. But then I noticed it had nothing to do with that. So
It's something like that. I don't think you can increase the same stat 3 levels in a row, and I think
Yeah, that
that
sounds right.
at certain character levels you have certain stat limitations. But in general, like you can't put every single point into strength.
Hmm.
There's just small things like that, and we talked about this before recording, but the dexterity and luck stats are bugged in this game. Luck is supposed to affect critical hit rate and traps when you open chests, but the critical hit stat is bugged, so you probably will never see a critical hit in this game unless you are playing through Hawkeye's first chapter, because after that the stat gets so bugged that I think it becomes 0% after a certain level. Um, and dexterity is supposed to affect hit and evade, but it for some reason translating dexterity to evade is bugged in this game, so the evade stat won't work. You'll basically always have the same hit and evade rate that you have in the beginning of the game, even if you pump in every point into dexterity, which makes Duran's shields in his knight classes useless, and also uh, makes Hawk a little bit less useful because his high dexterity is supposed to be a highlight of how he plays. But the dexterity affecting spell, like evade spells, will still affect hit and evade, but equipment won't and dexterity won't, which stinks.
Mm.
So, but also the one thing that's I think secretly the most important stat of this game: don't ignore anybody's intelligence stat because that's your magic attack and magic defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you keep intelligence super low for say Kevin or Duran, they'll get wiped out by magic spells all game.
Yeah, you definitely noticed that early on when Gwen and I were fighting, like, because Charlotte would take really not too much damage at all from any of the magic attacks, and then Reese and Duran were just getting wailed on.
Yeah, intelligence is magic attack and magic defense, and the other stat, which I think is it spirit,
Yeah.
is
Correct.
is your potency of your healing and support spells, and also I think your max MP goes up with more spirit.
And
I
does it affect
also
the stat down ones as well?
I think so. It affects how long those support spells last.
Right.
yeah, I was gonna say as well. It also affects the strength of your light spells.
Oh right, okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Oh, the holy ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Is light and dark or just light? Probably
I
just light.
think I think it's just light, but I'd have to double check.
Yeah, because Charlotte learns some light spells in her priestess classes, but then learns some dark spells in her enchantress classes. And spirit is her biggest stat by far.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She learns summons more than anything, and yeah, but a couple of ones in her second class, I think.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
summons are neat how they're handled, and I like how like a lot of the enemies use similar skills to what your classes use.
Oh yeah. There's
Yeah, the mana thing.
there's almost an enemy equivalent for every single class in the game. Uh, let's see, for Hawk, his ranger classes are represented by the Porobin hood characters, and his dark classes are represented by the ninjas that you fight. And it basically for every single job in the game, or many of them, there is an equivalent somewhere. Like some of them are a little uncommon. Like for Reese, it's those queen bee enemies that are only in like 2 places.
Yeah.
But for
Right, yeah.
but for Kevin, it's those werewolves that are all over 3 dungeons in the mid and late parts of the game.
Yeah.
And then
Kick
when
your
you're
butt.
going through that forest, I think I had I had Kevin on his light class at that point. The werewolves look exactly the same under the dark.
Yeah.
And I was like, which one am I hitting? Why am I not doing? Oh, it's Kevin. Oh.
Same problem.
Yeah, there's a couple of spaces in the game that are rotten with werewolves, and if you're using Kevin,
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we didn't mention it. Part of the reason that Kevin's the best character in the game is that at night he turns into a werewolf and his attack power doubles, and he's already the best or second best attacker when he's not a werewolf. So
It's supposed to only go up by 1.2, I think, but it goes up by 2.
I think that it was supposed to be a less dramatic increase than doubled, but instead they straight up double his attack stat,
It's great.
which is awesome. But when they remake this for 2020, I don't think Kevin's going to be quite this powerful.
A lot of stuff will probably get streamlined out. Although I guess that's worth mentioning is the night and day cycle too, and the different days and stuff.
Yeah, there's days of the week and a night and day system in this game. Different monsters show up at nighttime versus daytime, and each day of the week is named after a spirit, with the 6 spirits other than light and dark, plus Mana Holy Day, which is represented by the fairy on the menu screen, and during
free stays at the inn.
Yep, and different elements are stronger on their own Mana Day. So if you're about to do the big fire dungeon around Navarre, maybe don't go there on Salamando's day because then all the fire spells will be stronger.
Does it factor in like the opposites? Does it weaken them
I
conversely?
don't think so. I think it only makes one stronger. But
Gotcha.
if you had done Undyne before Salamando, which you can do those two in either order, and maybe Angela's freeze spell would be a little bit better against those bosses there.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't have her, so yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, basically, as you continue after Falsenna, next you visit Laurent and deal with the Levant versus Navarre conflict a little bit. You meet a you meet a like a Minish person to who teaches you a trick to make all of the Navarre defenders of Laurent fall asleep, and you meet the Wind Spirit. Then surprisingly after you. You get on a free boat ride after exiting Laurent and get stuck.
Not suspicious at all.
Get stuck on a ghost ship, which
that dungeon's nasty.
It's a stressful part of the game because the zombies deal a lot of damage, and there's a random part around halfway through where you lose a party member for the rest of the dungeon.
Yeah, you can swap who that is though. You can talk to the ghost and swap who it is. My bugbear with that dungeon is poison.
Yeah,
it's awful.
Just a lot of high damage and a lot of poison. But there are zombie shopkeepers in a couple places.
Yeah,
there is.
What do you want? And then there's also the trap-duped bedrooms.
Yep, yeah, at least one trapped bedroom. Not sure, but that's a bit of a challenging dungeon if you don't go in there with what to expect. The boss isn't that difficult, but just a lot of the time just going through a stage is more difficult than a boss because
it really can be, yeah.
Because if you're there slightly under leveled or slightly under armored, the enemies can wipe you out really fast. Even in the final dungeon, I was getting wiped out over and over because just two enemies would decide to do special skills back to back, and that was enough to kill two or all three of my party members.
Oof.
The game balance isn't bad in this game, but sometimes chain skills will wipe you out.
Yeah, you can just get a bad run of luck for sure. Speaking to the ghost ship out of the mouths of babes, Gwen did notice. She's like, "How come Charlotte can suddenly read?" Because you go to like the library in Valsenna, and she's like, "I can't read these books." It's like the naughty magazine and stuff like that. But in there, she can read the Cursed Diary and the Blood book or whatever and stuff like that. And she was like, "Wait a minute." It's like, maybe she learned to read. I don't know.
Is it maybe? Trials of Mana just isn't as consistent about children being unable to read as Dragon Quest V is.
No, that's so good.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's so cute in that game.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I got stuck in that dungeon for a while, and I actually feel like that's one of my. It's sort of a broader thing with this game, where like I feel like a lot of times I wasn't sure where to go or like what stone to talk to.
Yeah.
I definitely consulted a guide more than once, and I had to in this dungeon as well.
It's definitely more.
Difficulty of it. Yeah,
it's definitely more traditional RPG because Secret of Mana is very streamlined, very linear. You go here, there, and everywhere. Whereas Trials of Mana, I
very
found was very much like the general idea is talk to everybody and you'll probably figure it out. But
and I found
it's not like impossible. But
and even in dungeons where there really aren't NPCs to talk to, a lot of the time it'll be go to this corner of the dungeon and do something, and then that will open up a path halfway through the dungeon, but there's no way of communicating that to you. So a lot of the time, I would get turned around in dungeons and just sort of stumble until I found a crevice I hadn't visited yet, and there's no mini map, no world map, or well, I should say no dungeon or no area maps. So that was so it can be kind of challenging. I even got lost in the cave inside the volcano right after the ghost ship, because after the ghost ship crashes, you get in the volcanic island, and sort of halfway through there's first you're on the outside of the volcano, then you're in the cavern of the volcano, and at the end you meet Jagan, who's Isabel's cohort in the Navarre versus.
He's got some fancy Italian name now. It's like Macchiotto or something like that.
Yeah,
and he looks like Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, he definitely looks like a vampire. Yeah,
definitely the return.
Malvolio.
Oh, so he's a Shakespearean vampire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But. You're right, but he was Jagan in the old translation is why I forgot. But I got really turned around in that inside the volcano dungeon because just because again, it's a bunch of windy caves that look the same, and it's unclear where to progress at multiple points.
Yeah,
And
there's a circular loop there as well because I did a lot of grinding there.
the final dungeons
Yeah,
are a particular
Oh
culprit
yeah,
for this one.
yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to those. We'll get to
Definitely.
those in the second episode.
I mean, at least getting lost all the time meant that I never really had to grind because I was just running through the same areas over and over and over again. But I figured it out eventually.
And I find they're still appealing enough, even when you are a little lost. Like there's games where I've gone through and been stuck and lost and been like, where do I go? And it's just annoying and boring and drudgery. Whereas I don't know if it's just because the magic of the sprite work or just because the battles are engaging and fun because everything's so quick and fast and it's easy to just kind of get in, beat stuff up, and then move on. And falling into those little trap rooms just make it a little like intense and interesting and raise the stakes for a second for you to get out. Like it's enough to make it compelling even when you are lost. Like I never found myself going like, ugh, where do I go? I hate this. I'm done.
Yeah, the game is fun, and that makes the dungeon grinds or the dungeon confusion much easier to deal with. But
none of them are really long either. Like they're all pretty
No.
reasonable length, which is nice.
I think only the final gauntlet of dungeons is sort of gets a little long.
Yeah,
because you have to do 2 dungeons in a row with
I left.
with 3 bosses in between for all of the second to last dungeons. But in general they don't waste your time that much. But after you get off the volcano, you meet the one of the best characters in the game.
Hell yeah.
Booskaboo the turtle.
It's Voskav now.
Yeah, they've renamed him Vuskav, which I do not appreciate one bit.
I mean, it makes sense.
That happy
It's
turtle.
not nearly as cute.
That happy turtle is Booskaboo. I'm
He's
sorry.
beautiful. I love.
You wave every time.
I found out by accident, just by pressing the A button randomly while you're swimming around with him, he makes this very strange horn noise, and I kind of love
like
it.
The off-key thing. I didn't even know that either. My first playthrough, I randomly discovered it this time around. I was like, what?
Yeah, it's a great addition to the transport.
Yeah,
of
Booskaboo's
mana.
great. Yeah.
Why the flag? Like, what is, again, like he's a Kappa, but I'm wondering what more of his cultural significance is with the way they designed him. He's so bizarre. His little backpack, like, is he holding?
Yeah,
he's
got a backpack or maybe suspenders, and he's wearing a snorkel. And he's a turtle that swims in a crawl stroke, which is crazy.
He's also got like duck flippers.
Yeah.
He's just the best.
It's
Leave him alone.
all designed for adorability factor.
And he's got a great piece of music. Plus
Yeah.
that ska out.
Yeah, his music is great, and you summon him with a flute that has like like a cool little spinny flute animation when you summon him.
Yeah.
Does every character get that? Because in my playthrough, only Reese can play the flute. It's not who I have as my main character.
Every character.
Yeah, I was
So
going
it's
to say
whoever's like the chosen one.
Yeah,
whoever's picked. Sorry, whoever's the first character you pick has to play the flute, regardless of who you select. But every character has the animation.
And again, like you get a flying transport later in the game, but you're transported in this game is being shot out of a cannon, and then a perfect turtle boy, and then a beautiful flying girl. So it's like I love the transports in this game.
And don't forget being
it's
extorted for scads of money by the boat swains.
Ghost boats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's what when they were saying it's free. Gwen and I were both like, they've been charging us a lot of money up till now. What's wrong with this one?
Gotta watch out for those ghosty boats.
What is it with the SNES screams though? Like that scream at the beginning of the ghost ship is
chilling.
horrible. It's like nearly as bad as Lavos's scream.
Yeah, God, Chrono Trigger screams can get pretty bad. Like in Magus's castle, there's a lot of bone chilling noises, but the screams in Trials of Mana are pretty rough too. Like I don't know what those Square sound designers were on back in those days, but it was something unpleasant.
Like it's compelling. Like they're like it's not bad in like a bad like that was a poor choice way. It's just they're just piercing and to your soul.
But anyhow, after you take care of business in Laurent and the ghost ship and the volcano, you have to find the 4 remaining spirits, which are again the key to entering the Mana Holy Land and getting the Mana Sword to stop the mana from dying. And you go to Altina to find Undyne. You go to Navarre to find Salamando. You go to the Beast Kingdom to find Luna, and then you go to the village of Diore, the elf village where Charlotte's parents came from, to find Dryad. And you can't do them in any order. I think you can do Undine or Salamando in either order, but then Luna has to come next, and a Dryad has to come next. And you learn a little bit about those three regions: Altina, Navarre, Beast Kingdom, Diore, with each of those sort of mini quests. But the most important thing happens around there. You should hit level 18 in class change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
And we went into class changing a bit before, but I wanna ask you, like, is there identify one? Each of you tell me one character and class thing that choice you made. You don't have to go through all three of yours. Just pick one each. Any volunteers?
I'll start. I went Valkyrie because I think that gets me to Starlancer, right?
Yes, yeah, for
It certainly
and that was
does.
why.
Yep.
And that was the
Damn.
main reason I knew that I wanted the buffs that can go over the whole party, because I've heard that like using debuffs on bosses later can cause techs to trigger, and I'm being particular about that.
Yes, some bosses will retaliate with a spell whenever you cast anything on them, and
Yeah.
and that can be annoying. But Reese is always good, but Starlancer is, I think, her most popular class for many reasons, mostly because it's awesome,
That's a good
and
reason.
I think it's tied for her highest stats overall.
Okay.
So yeah,
Cool.
that's a good one. Alana, do you have a class change that worth talking about?
So in this playthrough, I've gone for Angela's light class sorceress. Main reason really is because between light and dark, eventually I'm gonna play through this game 24 times, or
Oh,
how many
my
times?
goodness.
Like 30 times. I don't know what the actual number is, but every character, I'm gonna try and do every single class at one point. I'm definite.
Awesome.
But
Well,
I'm gonna get
20. Well,
quick every time.
it would have to be 8 times because you have 24 final class versions, but you get 3 characters per playthrough.
That's right. Yeah.
So it only takes 8. But I'm still suspicious. Maybe don't do that.
not immediately, but like over the
Yeah.
rest of my life, then I'll still be playing this game at 70 years old and just be
Mm.
like, my final class, and put my final tick in my spreadsheet for all
I
of them.
I also went light for Angela, and this is where I get into my mid 2000s game facts boards theory crafting part of my personality. I think Angela's always she's one dimensional. She will always be blasting with her powerful spells, and
She's
her
always good though as well.
yeah,
Like,
she
it doesn't
always does a
really
lot of
matter where you
damage.
go. Like, I went her light class because she gets more than one level 2 spell. That's the main difference. Like, her
Yeah.
dark classes only get one spell.
Yeah, her dark- her
her
dark-
first dark class only
Yeah,
gets one spell.
yeah, her first dark class only gets 1 spell, and her first light class sorceress gets 5.
Yeah.
And because of that, like a lot of the boss fights in the middle of the game, Angela will be much more powerful.
Yeah, those god beasts need a bit of a beating.
Yeah, but and her final classes on the light side, she'll be better in normal encounters because she can multi-attack with a bunch of different elements.
Yeah, I
And,
don't have that benefit from any of the other
yeah,
characters.
But her dark classes will have a higher intelligence stat and learn a couple really powerful spells, so they'll be really strong against single targets. I like her light classes a little better because again, better mid game and still a great end game, while her dark classes are just significantly good in the end game, but maybe not even better than her light classes. There were fights online about what Angela's best class was, and my take on that was it kind of doesn't matter because all of her classes will do the same thing no matter what, which is just blasting with magic. But
Yeah,
I like her light classes better than her dark classes, which was not controversial, but there was a divide in the GameFAQs forums 15 years ago.
when isn't there?
Yeah.
Always. Greg, is there a class change that you made that was particularly interesting or fun?
Well, it's going to be, I guess, fun getting through the rest of this playthrough together because I'm going the opposite direction of Zach with my Reese. I'm going the debuff route. I did not know about the counter stuff, but I just was considering the fact that, like, yeah, I can debuff one thing at a time and just hit the enemies as opposed to having to buff each individual party member, which can be painstaking. So I was like, yeah, I'll just try and go that route. And it does have a significant impact even this early on with her as the Rune Maiden.
Yeah, Rune Maiden versus Valkyrie is pretty similar. I think Valkyrie has a point higher of strength, so it'll do a little bit more damage. But both versions of Reese will be really effective in both regular combat and bosses.
That's what it seems, yeah.
But in her final classes, the Valkyrie classes have a sort of a little bit better physical offense, and the Rune Maiden classes have a little bit better magic offense. And again, it's impossible for Reese to turn out badly. She'll be helpful in basically any party, but you don't want to double stack things. Like you don't want to have Rune Maiden, Reese, and Ninja Hawk because both of them do stat downs, and that's kind of redundant.
No, since we have the priestess route going in the party because Gwen wanted Charlotte to be light, I figured we've got the boosts handled. So
Charlotte doesn't learn any boosts going light route.
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't she?
No, she doesn't. She learns.
You'll get sabers.
Yeah, she'll get a bunch of good light spells, and she'll get elemental sabers, which are still great.
Yeah, and then same with Duran. So
yeah, Duran will get. He'll always learn at least one saber spell, but depending on what his final class is, it'll depend on which one that is.
yeah,
Actually, no. One of his final classes doesn't. But it's
is it Duelist? One of the dark ones?
No. Duelist learns 5 saber spells. It's the it's the light class that gets to multi-target heal light doesn't learn any sabers.
yeah, the Lord.
Yeah, but Duran he'll learn a couple light spells and healing and get a shield, which doesn't work if you go with his night classes. And his dark classes with Gladiator learn elemental sabers and get stronger attacks and stronger techs, which makes me overwhelmingly prefer his dark classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's again. I think Duran is a little bit clunky early in the game, but once he starts getting sabers and getting full screen text, he's much better.
He's got sweet purple armor.
Yeah, and he gets it's like purple and brown or purple and gold for Gladiator. It looks good. Mm-hmm. Because the sprites look great in this game. All of the color combinations look good, but
although Priestess Charlotte looks like Popoi from Secret of Mana.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit more sort of reddish pink in her whatever you call her hat. I'm not even sure what to call that thing.
Hat, hair thing, whatever. Yeah.
She's got like bright pink hair for me because she's an enchantress. So
same here. Yeah.
Snazzy.
Mm-hmm.
I also think the names of her spells are just completely ludicrous. I'm sorry, not her spells, her special attacks.
Oh, she's got Bonkle, hasn't she, at one point? Or Bonk.
I feel like that was what they were called. Like, yeah, because now it's Whack Boom, I think is her first one. And then she's got Jump in Priestess.
It's always Jump and Dash for Priestess and Enchantress, but her late ones are like, one of them's called Jumbonk, which her flail turns enormous and she swings it at an enemy. But another one's called Curseplode. I'm looking at a list now. But yeah, her
I love that.
Her attack names are always very silly, but she has the lowest strength in the game, so they won't be a huge part of your offense.
But they're definitely helpful for her, like because unless she uses them, she doesn't really do much damage otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, once I did a run with Angela and Charlotte on my team, but I put them in their classes that gave them the highest strength. Which ironically turned out pretty well for them because they just contributed more to regular offense than they otherwise would, and they were still powerful at offense and at magic offense and support. So
nice.
There's no bad decisions really, unless you go Durant as a knight when you already have a healer.
And they also have like the extra special attacks, which means their bars get longer now, so you have to charge up more. I had forgotten that, so I was just like, oh, I guess it gets replaced, but no, it just adds on to your, I guess not so much combos, but just you have more options.
Yeah, and then the Charlotte's Whack Bam Jump Dash Super Bonk, all of that stuff. Those are those are specials, which are a meter at the bottom of your screen, which is you don't have to hold the charge like in Secret of Mana. Instead, it works more like a limit break, where every time you hit an enemy, the meter goes up a little bit, and once it hits a certain level, you can use a special attack. And so everyone has a sort of just a regular attack where you glow white and are invincible for a little bit at level 1, but then after every time you class change, you get a first level 2 special, then a level 3 special, and those can be very, very powerful.
That's
and then Kevin gets about a buttload of them too, doesn't he? Get more than everybody else.
Yes. Kevin gets a throw and a strike special every time, and the throw is will always deal only single target, but more damage than his other specials.
Yeah, I was gonna say my pet hate with Secret of Mana is those charge up abilities, because every time you they're based on your weapon level. But every time you level up the weapon, you also have to go into the menu and change it so that you can use that level 2 charge up. This one, you don't have to do that. You can actually reduce it because there are some bosses that are like, sometimes it's better to just use your single tech spells. Otherwise, there's only one enemy on screen. But it was just a pet peeve of mine from Secret of Mana, among many others. As much as I love it.
It's a little bit better in Trials of Mana. Every time a character class changes, they'll automatically default to using their new skill. But if you want, you can go into the AI menu and say, no, I want you to use level 1 forever.
I will say as well, the AI in Trials of Mana is a heck of a lot better. One of the nice changes to the game is that if any of your characters got stuck behind a wall in Secret of Mana, you couldn't move along because they had to be on the screen with you.
Oh, yeah,
but in Trials of Mana, you can leave them alone, but you can also take control of them. And I found out by playing around a little bit with the buttons, if you hold down the A button to attack, your character will automatically move towards the nearest enemy and attack them. And if you carry on holding it down, they'll carry on attacking. But also, if you press the front shoulder button, the R1 or the L1 on the Switch, if you hold it down, you can control the other character without swapping between them with the select button. So,
that is nice.
I remember holding it down and it started panning the screen over, and I thought it was just kind of like a weird screen pan a la like Super Mario World. But no, I guess starting to trigger over them. That's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, that is nice. I usually just pick one main character and run them as the point the whole time, and then just go into the radial menus if I want one of my supporting characters to cast a spell. That goes into one of my least favorite parts of Trials of Mana. The start menu screen is really slow.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
And you have to go in there fairly often, to change your equipment or to look at your spells. So you go in there a fair amount of time, but it is real slow.
It's very neat, but a little clunky.
It took me probably about 2 hours to even figure out how to change between characters in the menu to like flip out equipment. I always forget that like select was actually important on Super Nintendo RPGs. The menus are very clunky and very slow.
The radial menus are fine. They're basically the same as Secret of Mana's, where you press X and then L and R to change characters and have them cast spells or use items. That's fine, but the start menu is slow and not always easy to figure out in this game. And I played this a bunch of times, and I'm still like, okay, I found the weapon as this character, so I have to move it from their inventory to this inventory. It's easier in shops when you can automatically send the items to the right people. But
that's true.
Yeah.
It's annoying once you start finding weapons and treasure chests.
Yeah, they just took a lot of like the bigger menu wheel from the radio menu and threw that into the start menu instead, and just, I guess, to flesh it out more. But yeah, it definitely comes at a cost to a player.
Yeah, it's a big 3x3 with different information on each square, and it loads slowly and moves slowly, which is not great.
I mean, Seiken Densetsu 3 was a bigger cartridge on the SNES, the Super Famicom anyway, wasn't it? Like, part of the reason it didn't come over was because they didn't think it would be cost-effective to translate it, especially because it probably would have been 1996 by the time they brought it over, and, the N64 and the PlayStation 1 were out at this point, and so, like, the fact that the menus are slow is probably just because they're so jam-packed full of, like, beautiful graphics and lots of other things, but
I've only heard some hearsay level stories about its original localization. At one point they did consider it. There's not like an unfinished localized version out there or anything, but it was discussed to be localized. But eventually they decided to. I think what they did instead. I don't know. I mean, this didn't take away from a potential localization or anything, but they ultimately made Secret of Evermore and finished Mario RPG instead of localizing Trials of Mana, because Mario RPG was later than Trials of Mana in development.
It was, but it's cheaper and smaller and shorter.
Yeah, exactly. And reportedly, Heroes of Mana and Children of Mana were two ideas they had for a localized SD3, but it didn't get. There wasn't a name picked or anything. It didn't get that far.
They just tarnished the names later instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Children of Mana's not too bad. It's just boring and repetitive. But I've heard bad things about Heroes.
Oh, we talked about those on the previous episode of Retro Encounter.
Yep.
Hey.
Just wait for it.
But yeah, we're focusing back on Trials of Mana. We're almost at the end of our halfway point. After you find the 8 spirits, you try to enter the Mana Sanctuary. But all 3 of the invading kingdoms from earlier in the game, the Beast Kingdom, Altina, and Navarre, all enter at the same time as you. So
with their sweet flying machines.
Yeah, with their very sweet flying machines, which range from airships to balloon ships to just grabbing a raven and flying.
I think it's really neat that Trials of Mana gives you a taste of every kingdom. Like, you get to see a bit of every kingdom's conflict, and you also get to see every single villain. And as you go along, you also get to see the other characters you didn't pick.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Like, if you start in Jad, you also get to see all of the characters in the city, bar Charlotte. So Angela's sleeping at the inn. I think Kevin's hiding in a bar. And Hawkeye's having a drink somewhere. So you can go and talk to them.
Yeah,
so I think it's really cool they pepper them in at occasional points.
Right. If Hawkeye and or Reese are not in your party, then when you go and retake Laurent after Sylphid joins you, you'll meet one or both of them in the castle. Same thing with Duran and Falsena, or Kevin when you go through the Beast Kingdom on the way to find Luna. You'll find the other characters. I think it's kind of easy to miss Angela because she doesn't show up in the Altina storyline, unless your main character is Duran. But in general, there's you do encounter the other characters that didn't join your party, but it's the interactions are different depending on your character selections, which don't affect the main story, but are cool little bits of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it makes the world feel alive. That stuff's happening without you still.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically. To enter but you get kicked out of the Holy Land because you get bombed by some Altinan airships, and you have to find a beautiful infant flying dragon, Flammy, to help you back in. Cannons, Booskaboo, and Flammy. What a trio.
She's beautiful as well. She's so good. I love the Mode 7 in this game and in Secret of Mana. It's so good.
Yeah, and they definitely amped up her sprite design for sure.
Yeah, she looks the same as her Secret of Mana version, but there's just more frames of animation and just in a better looking game in general. But
you get more glorious Flammy sprite action in Part 2.
Mm-hmm. But you go through the Mana Holy Land. You have to fight through some Rabbites. You see that the three invading nations have all been fighting each other. You see fallen ninjas, beastmen, and mages everywhere. And at the end, when you do collect the Mana Sword from the Mana Goddess, but the fairy's missing. And on the way back to the edge of the sanctuary, you'll meet the defeated other nations. Depending on who your first character is, will shape the outcome of this fight. If Duran or Angela is your main character, then Altina wins. If Hawkeye or Reese is your main character, then Navarre wins. And if Charlotte or Kevin is your main character, then the Beast Kingdom wins. And and on the way back to the edge of the sanctuary, you'll meet people from the two defeated nations, and they'll say, "We lost. We give up. We can't revive the Demon King or whatever we're trying to do." And then they leave, and you meet the winning party who are holding the fairy hostage, and you have to exchange the fairy for the Mana Sword, upon which they use the Mana Sword to really mess some stuff up. That'll take us to our next episode, where we'll discuss the second half of Trials of Mana. But before we go into a closing statements, is there anything that we didn't go over, something that we want to discuss that we maybe glossed over on the way here?
I guess we'll dig into it more next episode because there's more examples of this. But we did mention sprite work, but there are some really cool looking bosses in this first half of the game. The Full Metal Hugger is gorgeous, spidery crab boy. I love the Jewel Eater, the mole.
I love the way the mole moves. It looks so cool.
But yeah, like the movement is so good, and actually, like it comes into play in battle as well, because rather than having the bar like you do in a Final Fantasy Adventure or a Secret of Mana, they have a tiny little animation where their like hands or their weapon flashes and they just jolt up. So that's when you know you can attack again. And I just think that the detail in this game, like Secret of Mana is a feast for the eyes, but Seiken Densetsu is a bit more muted and pastel-y and grey at times, but like it's just equally as beautiful in a different way. And I think
they definitely pushed a lot of boundaries.
Yeah,
and
we will definitely talk about more boss animations in the second half, because there is there's a gauntlet of
there's a big goat boy I want to talk about.
There's also with like Legend of Mana, like again, like the big beautiful sprites in that game are very similar to the designs used on the bosses in this one, and these bosses are so much more detailed and elaborate than they were in Secret of Mana.
Yeah, and there's a solid dozen bosses in the second half that we have to talk about.
Mhm.
Eight Benevodons, then 3 final bosses. So I guess 11 each. The final 3 bosses of the game are different depending on who your main character is. Again, it's if it's depending on whether Altina, the Beast Kingdom, or Navarre is sort of the winning nation in the Mana
Right.
Sanctuary. So yeah, again, different final dungeons and different final bosses depending on your main character choice. Which again, that's a big choice to make at the beginning of the game when you maybe don't know anything about the game.
That's true.
Speaking to the sprites too, or the sprite work, I guess, like the Lamp Bloom Forest is, I think, probably my favorite location.
Mhm.
It was just so pretty,
Yeah.
especially at the night cycle when all the lamp lights, basically the flowers, start blooming and glowing. It's so lovely.
Yeah, it looks great
That's-
for a 1995 Super Famicom game.
Mhm.
One of the best. One of the best.
And it just
looking
fleshes
ones.
out that world that was established in Secret of Mana all that much more, and gives you all these more enchanting kind of locales of wherever this is taking place, kind of thing, to really set each nation apart.
Yeah, the locations feel distinct,
Mhm.
and most of them seem to be under the influence of or sponsored by one of the mana spirits. But it adds to the flavor of the world.
Apart from the missing Darkstone. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, God.
I have a theory of where the Darkstone originally resided, but when you collect Shade near the after the Ghost Ship, he tells you he doesn't know where the Mana Stone is, doesn't know where the Benevodon is, and it's bad news in general.
Yep. And
But
then
Shade's a good little bat boy though.
yeah,
a
he's
good
not
bad
shady.
boy.
The music in this is also stellar.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Hiroki Kikuta's awesome, and
Yeah.
I've even snuck in some of his stuff to old Retro Encounter episodes because I really like a handful of the songs, and it's sort of amusing. He doesn't have a single boss fight track. You'll notice this more in the second half of the game. He'll use like dungeon tracks for boss fights sometimes, or like
Yeah.
It's good.
or
They're so distinct.
yeah, or like there will be a track that only one boss uses the whole game. He there's a lot of diversity in the soundtrack, and it's a solid 30 plus songs that are all bangers.
Yeah, they're really good. I think I might slightly prefer Secret of Manners. Maybe that's nostalgia speaking, but the boss tracks are way better because
Yeah.
Danger from Secret of Mana is awful.
Secret of
Yeah. Gets a little grating after a while, yeah.
But yeah, like all the boss tracks in this game are stellar.
All right, we have a lot to talk about in the second half of Trials of Mana, especially the Mega Man segment, which is coming almost right next.
So
What?
excited to talk about the Benevodons. I love them.
Greg, there are 4 bosses. There are 8 bosses. Each of them has a distinct themed level, and you have to go through the level to fight the boss and get his powers.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was saying I couldn't remember doing any of that, even though I know I got through it. Apparently,
There are 8 in a row.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't remember doing them. I've done a lot since.
So yeah, but if I'm making allusions to Mega Man, then I probably need a nap or a meal or something. So let's end it. Listeners, next week we have a special summer break episode that is being hosted by my favorite human, Marcos Gaspar, and there's going to be talking about summer memories with RPGs or summery feeling RPGs. It sounded like it was a lot of fun to record, but I regrettably had to pass on that episode. But after summer break is over, or I should say at the very end of summer break, in August we are recording 2 episodes on The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel. Trails right after Trials, and I'm definitely going to be mixing up those words.
We didn't make any mistakes though.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think we have. I mean, maybe I made a mistake so smooth I didn't even notice it. But also in August, you might have noticed this is episode 196. Episode 200 is only 4 away. So we gotta do something special for episode 200. I don't want to say what it is yet because we're still planning it, but we are gonna have something unusual for episode 200 that should be a lot of fun to record, and that is also coming in August. But listeners, if you want to contact us, the best way to do so is email retro@rpgfan.com. You can also visit RPG Fan's message boards, our Facebook page, an Instagram page, a Twitter, Discord server, Twitch streaming. All of that is linked from the front page of rpgfan.com. We also have 2 other podcasts, Random Encounter about current events, hosted usually every 2 weeks, and Rhythm Encounter about RPG Fan music, usually hosted On hiatus. Okay. Not usually hosted. And listeners, you can also review us or any of our podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, or however you are listening to us. Any feedback is appreciated. But also, listeners, thank you for putting up with me rambling about one of my favorite old Super Famicom games that I can finally play legally.
Worth it.
I can't tell you the confused joy I felt when I saw that announcement.
They're remaking it? Wait, no, it's out?
Yeah.
Today?
So
Wait, no, it's both?
And it's just sheer joy playing that game. Like, I'm just filled with that mix of childlike nostalgia from playing it back on the emulator days and playing Secret of Mana, and just how fresh and new even this experience is. It's just so fun. Like, it's no wonder you love this game so much.
It's a good, fun game, and I won't say 100% holds up because there's definitely archaic parts to it. And but if you have old school sensibilities and you like action RPGs, this is just a really fun, beautiful example of this kind of game. But how can listeners reach you, starting with you, Greg?
You can find me at Greg Delmage pretty much anywhere on the internet, or GDelme on our Discord.
All right, and Alana?
I'm on the Twitter hellscape at Alana Hagues and Diving Falcons on any RPG fan-related stuff.
And Zach Trick?
You can email me at zachw@rpgfan.com or find me at zachw on Discord.
All right, and you can find me on Twitter at The Real Monsoon most of the time, at Evoker for Dogs other times. I'm Monsoon Mike on Discord, Monsoon on the forums, and some version of Monsoon Mike Sollosi or Evoker for Dogs, I guess. All right, I'm really excited for the second half of this. I might just play the game again just for the second half because it takes very little prompting for me to just play this game.
And how weird is it? There's no actual like Trials of Mana guides out yet. It's just still all like the Seiken Densetsu 3 ones. No one's just gone back and edited.
No, you got to go back to the 2002 Seiken Densetsu 3 game facts pages,
right?
where there's
it's fun.
Yeah,
and you keep trying to search Trials of Mana, and it just keeps telling you about the remake that's coming out.
I hope the remake doesn't have a bugged agility stat. That would be a bummer. But I'm pretty sure they aren't gonna use the same code from a 1995 game for a 2020 remake. Oh, that'll be the 25th anniversary. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
All right, but it's the anniversary of us needing to end this episode. Listeners, thank you. Good night and good luck.